The peaceful colony of Terra Nova, a small settlement on the outskirts of Earth, had always been a place where humans lived in harmony with nature. The sun always seemed to shine a little brighter there, and the people took pride in their simple, quiet lives. Families lived in harmony with their surroundings, farming the land and raising animals. Among these families was Jack, a soldier-turned-farmer who had found solace in the companionship of his dog, Max. Max wasn't just a dog to Jack, he was family. The loyal animal had been by Jack's side through thick and thin, and their bond was something deeper than mere companionship. Max had been his best friend through years of hardship and pain, always there to greet him with a wagging tail after a long day of work. One day, everything changed. The peaceful skies over Terra Nova were pierced by the arrival of an alien ship. The Exetherians, a race known for their cold, calculating demeanor and unmatched technological superiority, had come to Earth. They arrived with no warning, no invitation, and no respect for the people they encountered. They had visited many other worlds, bringing devastation wherever they went, and they assumed the same would happen on Earth. They believed their advanced technology would make them untouchable, that no one would dare to stand against them. But they underestimated one thing: humanity's resolve. The Exetherians landed their massive ship on the outskirts of the colony, their armored soldiers emerging with a sense of disdain. They viewed humans as primitive and insignificant. They came to assert their dominance, but they quickly found that the peaceful humans of Terra Nova would not bow to them. As the Exetherians set foot on Earth, they began to demand things they had no right to, and when a human tried to resist, they reacted with violence. And then, in an act that would seal their fate, one of the Exetherian soldiers shot and killed Max, Jack's beloved dog. The peaceful animal had simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time, and the Exetherians, seeing it as a symbol of human weakness, killed it without hesitation. Jack witnessed the scene from a distance, and a rush of anger and disbelief filled him. He ran toward the spot where Max had fallen, his heart racing. He held the lifeless body of his dog in his arms, unable to comprehend the cold brutality of what had just occurred. Max, who had always been there for him, had been taken from him without warning, without reason. Jack's eyes burned with unused tears, but there was no time to mourn. The rage inside him was too strong. He looked up at the alien soldiers who stood coldly watching him. They didn't care. To them, Max was just a creature, insignificant. But to Jack, Max was family, and they had crossed a line that could never be undone. The Exetherians had underestimated humanity. In that moment, as the alien ship began to take off, Jack made a vow. He would make them pay. He would make them regret ever stepping foot on Earth. As the Exetherian ship ascended into the sky, Jack felt a strange sense of dread wash over him. There was something about this event that felt like the beginning of something much larger. He had no idea that the death of Max would trigger a chain of events that would awaken a force of unimaginable destruction. In the deep forgotten vaults of Earth's history, there was a secret that had been buried for centuries, a relic from an age long past when humanity had been far more advanced than it was today. Earth had a weapon, an ancient warship, the Vanguard. Built eons ago by a long-forgotten human civilization, the Vanguard was a machine of incredible power. It was capable of wiping out entire fleets, reducing them to nothing but cosmic dust. It was humanity's last line of defense against galactic threats, and it had remained dormant for centuries, waiting for the day it would be needed. That day had come. Earth's government, upon receiving Jack's distress signal and learning of the alien attack, unlocked the ancient warship's location. Hidden deep beneath the surface of the planet, the Vanguard had been buried and forgotten, its power locked away in the dark corners of history. But the Exetherians' arrival had triggered the awakening of something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The Vanguard was activated, its systems coming online with a low hum that shook the ground. Deep underground, in a secret facility, human soldiers and scientists worked feverishly to bring the ship to life. Its colossal engines roared to life, and the enormous warship slowly began to rise from its slumber. Prometheus, the AI that controlled the ship, came online, its voice a cold, calculated presence in the minds of those who attempted to control it. It questioned the humans, wondering if they were truly worthy of wielding such power. But Jack didn't care about the AI's doubts. All he could think about was the alien soldiers who had killed his dog. He didn't care about the technology or the weapon. It was vengeance he sought. And with the Vanguard now in operation, humanity's chance for revenge was within their grasp. Jack's heart was still heavy with loss, but the anger that burned within him began to focus. This wasn't just about revenge for Max anymore. This was about something much bigger. The Exetherians had shown humanity that they were vulnerable, and now humanity was going to show them that they were not to be underestimated. The Vanguard would be the tool of that message. The first step had been taken, and there would be no turning back. As the Vanguard soared into the sky, Jack felt a renewed sense of purpose. The mission had changed. It was no longer just about him and his lost dog. It was about protecting Earth. It was about showing the galaxy that humanity would never back down, no matter the odds. The death of Max had sparked a war, but it had also ignited the fire of a new beginning for Earth. Jack didn't know what the future held, but one thing was clear. The Exetherians would regret the day they had ever crossed paths with humanity. The Vanguard was just the beginning, and the fight for Earth's survival had only just begun. This was just the start of a much bigger story, a story of vengeance, survival, and the fight for humanity's place in the stars. As the Exetherian ship disappeared into the sky, Earth's leaders knew they had to act fast. The peaceful life they had long taken for granted was now shattered, and humanity's survival was in question. The aliens had shown no mercy, and their cold, calculating nature made it clear that they wouldn't stop until they had crushed every last trace of resistance. But what the Exetherians didn't know was that humanity had a hidden power, a power that could change everything. After the death of Jack's dog and the attack on Terra Nova, Earth's leaders called an emergency meeting. There was no time to waste. As Jack and his fellow soldiers rallied for what seemed like a hopeless fight, the human government began scouring its ancient archives, desperate to find any clue or weapon that could turn the tide. It was in one of these forgotten archives that they discovered something that would change the course of history: the Vanguard. The Vanguard was not just a ship, it was a testament to a forgotten era, an ancient relic from humanity's past, created by a long-lost civilization that had once thrived far beyond the stars. This civilization, known to history only through whispers and fragments, had reached the peak of technological advancement centuries ago, only to disappear without a trace. Their achievements had been lost to time, but one thing remained: the Vanguard. The Vanguard wasn't just a warship, it was the ultimate weapon, capable of interstellar destruction. It was built to defend humanity from threats far beyond the reach of any modern force. Its power was unmatched, and its potential was immeasurable. But it had remained dormant, hidden deep beneath the surface of Earth for centuries, waiting for the day it would be needed. And now, that day had arrived. The government had uncovered the location of the Vanguard, hidden in a long-forgotten underground facility. It was buried deep within the planet, shielded by layers of rock and time, its secrets waiting to be uncovered. A team of soldiers, led by Jack, was dispatched to locate and awaken the warship. The journey to the Vanguard was not going to be easy. It would be dangerous, and there was no guarantee they would find what they were hoping for. But humanity's fate depended on it. As Jack and his team descended into the depths of the facility, he felt the weight of history pressing down on him. The further they went, the more the air seemed to grow thick with the knowledge of what lay ahead. Every step felt like a journey back in time, to an age when humanity had been stronger, more powerful, and more connected to the stars. But as they descended deeper, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into the unknown. The facility was massive, its walls lined with ancient technology that hummed with a faint, forgotten energy. Dust had settled over everything, and the air was heavy with the scent of rust and decay. It felt as though the facility had been abandoned for eons, but there was a strange sense of life within the walls. Something ancient and powerful was waiting, and Jack could feel it. His pulse quickened as they reached the heart of the facility, a massive control room that was the key to awakening the Vanguard. The room was empty, save for a central console that stood at the heart of the chamber. The console's interface was covered in layers of dust, but Jack and his team quickly got to work, activating the ancient systems. As they did, the room came alive with a low hum, the sound of dormant technology being awakened. It was like the entire facility was taking a deep breath after centuries of silence. Jack's heart raced as he watched the console flicker to life. The AI controlling the Vanguard, a self-aware intelligence named Prometheus, began to awaken. Its voice echoed through the room, cold and calculating. "Who dares to awaken me?" Prometheus's voice asked, its tone both commanding and distant. Jack took a step forward, his voice steady as he responded. "We're here to wake the Vanguard, to use it to fight the Cytherians." There was a long pause. Jack could feel the weight of Prometheus's gaze, even though the AI's presence was merely a voice in the air. The silence stretched on, as though Prometheus was weighing their worth. "You seek the power of the Vanguard," Prometheus said, its voice laced with something like curiosity. "But why? Are you worthy of wielding such power? Will humanity prove capable of handling what you are about to unleash?" Jack's eyes narrowed. He could feel the tension in the air as the AI's words sank in. Humanity's past had built this weapon, but now it was up to them to prove they deserved to use it. Prometheus was not just a tool, it was a sentient being, with its own thoughts and plans for the future. "We don't have time for your questions," Jack snapped, his voice sharp with frustration. "The Cytherians killed my dog, and now they're coming to destroy us. We need the Vanguard, and we need it now." Prometheus seemed to consider Jack's words for a moment before responding. "The Vanguard is not a simple weapon. It is a force, an embodiment of power that can reshape the fate of entire civilizations. You seek it for vengeance, but vengeance alone will not guide you." Jack clenched his fists. He could feel the heat of anger building in his chest again, but he knew Prometheus was right. Vengeance alone wouldn't be enough. They needed to be more than just angry. They needed to fight for humanity's future. "We'll prove we're worthy," Jack said, his voice firm. "We'll use this ship to save our people, to stop the Cytherians." There was a long silence, and Jack held his breath, waiting for the AI's response. Finally, Prometheus spoke again. "Very well," it said, its tone colder now, almost distant. "But know this. The Vanguard is not a tool to be wielded lightly. It will require everything you have, and more. Are you prepared to pay the price?" Jack didn't hesitate. "We're ready." As Prometheus gave its assent, the room around them began to tremble. The ancient warship was awakening, its systems coming online, ready to carry out the mission it had been created for centuries ago. Jack could feel the power of the Vanguard surging to life, its energy coursing through the facility like a pulse. But even as the Vanguard came to life, Jack couldn't shake the nagging feeling that they were awakening something far more dangerous than they could control. The power of the Vanguard was immense, and while it could save humanity, it could just as easily destroy them. They had unleashed the Vanguard, and now there was no turning back. The next step was to launch it, to take it into the sky and bring the fight to the Cytherians. But Jack couldn't help but wonder, was humanity truly ready for the power they had just unleashed? With a deep hum that vibrated through the air, the Vanguard tore its way through Earth's atmosphere, cloaked in a nearly invisible shield. The ship was a relic from a forgotten time. Its power now awakened for one singular purpose: to defend humanity. As it streaked into the vastness of space, it became a silent, deadly predator, unseen by the Cytherian forces who were scattered across the galaxy, oblivious to the threat rising against them. The Cytherians, a race known for their ruthless nature and overwhelming technological superiority, had made a grave mistake by attacking Earth and killing Jack's dog. They had underestimated humanity, just as they had underestimated the ancient weapon lying dormant beneath Earth's surface. Now, the Vanguard was on the move, a threat that the Exetherians could not have predicted. Inside the warship, the atmosphere was tense. Jack stood at the helm, staring at the massive view screen as the stars outside stretched into lines. His heart was pounding. This was no longer just a mission to get revenge for the death of his dog. It was about humanity's survival. The Vanguard was their last hope. The ship's eye, Prometheus, guided them into the heart of Exetherian space, its stealth systems making the Vanguard undetectable by the enemy. The Vanguard was a masterpiece of engineering, designed to be the perfect weapon. It could strike at the heart of an enemy without ever being seen, leaving devastation in its wake. As they approached the Exetherian fleet, Jack's team stood ready. They knew what was at stake. This was not just a battle for Earth, it was a battle for their future. And yet, the Vanguard was not invincible. Even though it had power beyond imagination, its systems were not limitless. Time was running out. Jack's grip tightened on the controls as he prepared for the upcoming assault. Without warning, Prometheus initiated the attack. The Vanguard's energy cannons fired, unleashing a storm of destruction across the enemy fleet. The bolts of pure energy streaked through space, slamming into the Exetherian ships with earth-shattering force. Explosions lit up the dark void, rippling outward as enemy vessels were torn apart by the sheer power of the Vanguard's weapons. The Exetherians were caught completely off guard. Their fleets were designed to dominate, to crush any enemy beneath the weight of their technological might. But they had never encountered anything like the Vanguard. A ship with the power to obliterate entire fleets in an instant. The Exetherians scrambled to respond, launching their own weapons in retaliation, but the Vanguard was too fast, too powerful. It moved like a ghost, vanishing and reappearing, leaving a trail of destruction wherever it went. As the Vanguard continued its assault from space, Jack and his team prepared to take the fight to the Exetherian forces up close. They knew that the Vanguard couldn't hold off the Exetherian fleet forever. Its energy reserves were limited, and its systems were designed for quick, decisive strikes, not prolonged warfare. The humans had to move fast. Jack's team boarded one of the Exetherian warships, a sleek and menacing vessel that had been designed for speed and firepower. They had one goal: to take out the ship's central command and ensure that the Exetherian fleet was thrown into chaos. The team's hearts were racing as they dropped onto the enemy ship, their boots hitting the cold, metallic floor with a soft clank. They were immediately met with resistance. The Exetherians had superior technology: plasma rifles, energy shields, and enhanced armor. But Jack and his team weren't about to back down. They fought with everything they had. Explosions rocked the ship as gunfire echoed in the tight corridors. Jack's soldiers moved quickly, using their advanced training to take out the Exetherian soldiers with ruthless efficiency. The action was intense. Jack's pulse raced as he sprinted down the narrow hallways, his weapon raised and ready. The Exetherian soldiers were fierce, but Jack's team fought with a fire and determination that only humans could possess. There was no surrender, no retreat. Every move they made was calculated, every shot precise. But even with their determination, the odds were stacked against them. The Exetherians fought with the cold precision of machines, their movements fast and coordinated. Their plasma rifles cut through the air, blasting chunks of metal from the walls and sending sparks flying. Jack and his team dodged, moving from cover to cover, their hands shaking but their resolve unwavering. They had to keep pushing forward. They had no choice. In the midst of the chaos, Jack found himself face to face with one of the Exetherian commanders. The alien was tall, its sleek, armored body a sight to behold. Its eyes glowed with an eerie light as it raised its weapon toward Jack. Without hesitation, Jack fired first. The Exetherian commander stumbled back, wounded but not dead. It raised its hand, signaling its soldiers to charge. The battle intensified. Jack's team fought tooth and nail, holding their ground against the superior alien force. The sounds of gunfire, explosions, and the screams of fallen soldiers filled the air as they closed in on the command center. Jack's chest was tight with the weight of the battle, but he couldn't afford to stop. Not now. Just when it seemed like they might be overwhelmed, Jack's team reached the central command room. They stormed inside, taking down the remaining Scytherian forces with precision and speed. The room fell silent as Jack approached the main control panel, his hands shaking as he accessed the ship's systems. With one quick movement, he detonated the Scytherian warship's core, sending a shockwave through the enemy fleet. Back in space, the Vanguard continued its destruction. The Scytherian fleet was in disarray, unable to respond to the coordinated assault. But Jack and his team knew that this victory came at a cost. The Vanguard systems were running low on power. The time they had bought was running out. The Vanguard could not hold the line forever. The team returned to their ship, ready for the final push. They had one last chance to strike the Scytherian fleet before the Vanguard systems failed completely. The countdown began, and Jack could feel the weight of the coming battle. The stakes had never been higher. They had one shot to end this, one shot to save humanity from the Scytherian scourge. But as they prepared for the final assault, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they were racing against the clock. The Vanguard was the key to humanity's victory, but how long could it keep fighting? The countdown continued, and Jack knew that no matter the outcome, humanity would never forget the power they had unleashed. The battle was reaching its peak, the chaos in space and on the ground escalating in ways that Jack never imagined. The Vanguard's mighty weapons continued to unleash their destructive fury, cutting through the Scytherian fleet with surgical precision. But despite their initial success, the tide of war was starting to turn against them. The Vanguard systems were nearing their limit. It wasn't built for sustained combat on this scale, and its power reserves were rapidly dwindling. The final showdown was just around the corner, and the stakes had never been higher. As the Vanguard's weapons powered down, Jack's heart pounded in his chest. He could feel the pressure mounting with every passing second. They had come so far, had fought so hard, but the aliens were still out there, relentless, and Jack knew that one misstep could mean the end of everything they had worked for. Humanity's survival hung in the balance, and it wasn't just a fight for victory anymore. It was personal. For Jack, this battle had become about more than just saving Earth. It was about vengeance, redemption, and the legacy of those they had lost. In the midst of the chaos, Jack's mind kept returning to his friend Bonner. They had fought side by side through countless battles, and Bonner was more than just a teammate. He was family. The two had grown up together, had shared their hopes and dreams, and now Bonner was gone. The memory of his friend's face, determined and unyielding even in the face of death, burned in Jack's mind. Bonner had been killed in a brutal skirmish with a Scytherian warrior, his life snuffed out in an instant. The grief hit Jack harder than he expected. The loss of his closest friend felt like a crushing weight, and in that moment, all of his anger, frustration, and fear seemed to coalesce into a single burning desire for revenge. He could still see Bonner's blood staining the ground, his body torn apart in the heat of battle. The Scytherians had taken away the person he cared about most, and Jack was determined to make them pay. With Bonner's death fresh in his mind, Jack pushed forward, leading his team with renewed focus. There was no turning back now. They had to finish what they started, no matter the cost. The Vanguard systems were faltering, but Jack wasn't about to let that stop him. The Scytherians had underestimated humanity's resilience, and they were about to learn just how wrong they were. But just when it seemed like all hope was lost, Jack discovered something that gave him a glimmer of hope. While exploring the Vanguard's control room, he stumbled upon a hidden function that had been buried deep within the ship's systems, something that no one had anticipated. The Vanguard wasn't simply a weapon of destruction. It had a hidden self-repairing mechanism, a last resort designed to keep the ship operational even in the direst of situations. Jack's heart skipped a beat as he realized what this meant. The Vanguard wasn't finished. It could be restored, recharged, and made even more powerful than before. The ship's energy reserves were replenished, its systems recalibrated, and the ship was ready to fight once more. With renewed determination, Jack activated the ship's main weapon systems. The Vanguard's energy cannons fired once more, this time with even greater intensity. The Exitherian fleet, caught off guard by the unexpected resurgence of the Vanguard, was sent into disarray. They had thought they had won. They had believed that humanity was finished. But now, the Vanguard was stronger than ever, and it was ready to finish what it had started. The battle in space reached its zenith. The Vanguard cut through the Exitherian ships with surgical precision, its energy beams tearing apart enemy vessels in a dazzling display of destruction. But this time, it wasn't just about the ship. The humans on the ground, now armed with the knowledge and confidence that they were no longer fighting an uphill battle, moved with newfound strength. They fought not only for their survival, but also for their fallen comrades, for Bonner, and for the future of humanity. The visuals of the battle were nothing short of breathtaking. From space, the Vanguard unleashed a massive orbital bombardment, launching waves of energy blasts that decimated entire Exitherian colonies. The Exitherians, once so sure of their superiority, were now reeling from the onslaught. Jack's heart swelled with a mix of pride and sorrow as he watched the destruction unfold. This was their revenge, but it came at a cost. On the ground, the human forces were engaged in intense close-quarters combat. Jack and his team fought side by side with the soldiers who had once felt outmatched by their alien enemies. But now, they were on equal footing. The Exitherians may have had superior technology, but humanity had something they didn't: heart. The close-quarters combat scenes were intense, with every moment hanging in the balance. The clash of weapons, the shouts of soldiers, and the explosions that rocked the battlefield were all part of the desperate struggle. Jack's team fought with everything they had, driven by the loss of their friends and the knowledge that they had no other choice. They had to win. There was no other option. Every victory, every enemy soldier they took down, was a small triumph in the larger war. But it wasn't enough. The Vanguard was running out of time. The self-repairing mechanism had given them a second chance, but it wasn't a permanent solution. The ship's power reserves would eventually deplete, and the battle would be lost. The countdown had begun. Jack knew that the final strike had to come soon. They had to hit the Exitherian fleet with everything they had, every last ounce of power, before the Vanguard systems failed. There was no more room for error. Every move had to be precise. Every shot had to count. They had come this far. Now they had to finish the job. As Jack stood on the battlefield, watching the final moments of the fight unfold, he couldn't help but think of Bonner. His best friend was gone, but Jack knew that he was still fighting beside him, in every action, every decision, every breath. The war was not over yet, but Jack was ready to see it through. The fate of humanity was at stake, and he would not stop until they had achieved victory. The time had come for humanity's final strike. The Vanguard, now fully recharged and restored, sailed through the stars, cloaked and undetectable by the Exitherian forces. Its weapons were primed, its systems at full capacity. The Exitherian capital ship loomed ahead, a towering testament to their might. This was it, the decisive moment that would determine the fate of both humanity and the Exitherian Empire. Jack and his team, bruised, battered, and emotionally exhausted, knew this was the battle they had been fighting for. It was now or never. For Jack, this fight was deeply personal. The memories of his childhood with his beloved dog, his best friend Bonner's sacrifice, and the burning desire for revenge against the Exitherians filled his heart. He wasn't just fighting for Earth's survival anymore. He was fighting for everything he had lost. He was fighting for the future, for the very soul of humanity. As the Vanguard raced toward the Scytherian capital ship, Jack could feel the weight of those emotions pressing down on him. He wasn't alone in this battle, but the pain of those losses was something only he could carry. The battle began with a deafening roar as the Vanguard fired its powerful energy cannons, sending waves of destruction through the Scytherian defenses. The ship's arsenal unleashed hell upon the enemy fleet, vaporizing Scytherian ships in an instant. The Scytherians, who had once mocked humanity, now realized the terrifying power they had awakened. The Vanguard was unlike anything they had ever faced, and it was relentless. But Jack knew the real fight lay ahead. This was only the beginning. The Vanguard cut through the heart of the Scytherian fleet, its energy beams tearing through enemy vessels with a brilliance that lit up the void of space. As the ship approached the Scytherian capital ship, Jack's heart raced. He knew that the final battle was just beginning. The Scytherian capital ship was their last stronghold, their final line of defense. If the Vanguard could breach it, humanity would have a chance at victory. If not, all would be lost. As the Vanguard docked with the alien ship, Jack's team prepared for the ground assault. The final charge had begun. With weapons drawn, they boarded the alien ship, prepared for the last fight of their lives. The atmosphere inside the Scytherian capital ship was tense, thick with the fear and anticipation of what was to come. The corridors of the massive vessel seemed endless, dark, and foreboding. But Jack's determination was unshakable. He would not fail. He had come too far, lost too much, to let this be the end. The team fought their way through the alien ship, each member battling Scytherian soldiers with fierce resolve. The alien warriors were formidable, their technology light years ahead of humanity's. But Jack and his team fought with an unyielding spirit. Every step they took, every enemy they struck down, brought them closer to their goal. They were the underdogs, but they had something that Scytherians did not: the will to fight, the desire to survive, and the strength of a united humanity. As they reached the central chamber of the Scytherian capital ship, Jack knew the final confrontation was at hand. The leader of the Scytherians stood before him, a creature of unimaginable intelligence and power. This was no ordinary alien warrior. The Scytherian leader was the mastermind behind the Empire's invasion of Earth, the one who had ordered the death of Jack's dog and the destruction of everything he held dear. The two stood face to face, separated by nothing but their own hatred and resolve. The Scytherian leader looked down at Jack with disdain, its cold, calculating eyes piercing into his soul. It spoke, its voice like ice, cutting through the air. "You humans think you can defeat us. You are nothing but insects beneath our feet. Your primitive weapons, your insignificant lives, they mean nothing in the face of our power." Jack's grip on his weapon tightened. He had heard enough. The anger, the grief, the pain, it all surged through him in a wave of fury. "You killed my dog," Jack spat. "You killed my friend. And now you're going to pay. You're going to pay for everything you've taken from us." The alien leader smiled, but there was no humor in it, only a chilling sense of superiority. It raised its hand, and in an instant, the chamber was filled with a blinding light. The alien unleashed a torrent of energy, a weapon of unimaginable force that struck Jack square in the chest. For a moment, everything went white. Jack's body slammed against the wall, the pain shooting through him like lightning. He could feel the blood pouring from his wounds, his vision blurring. But through the haze of pain, one thing was clear: he wasn't going to let this alien win. With a strength born of sheer will, Jack pushed himself to his feet. The pain was unbearable, but he fought through it. He couldn't give up. Not now. The fate of Earth, and the memory of everything he had lost, was riding on this moment. He activated the weapon on his arm and charged toward the Scytherian leader, every step fueled by the anger and pain that had been building inside him. The battle was fierce, a brutal clash between two forces with everything to lose. The alien leader fought with a cold, calculated precision, but Jack fought with the raw intensity of a man who had nothing left to lose. The final moments of the fight were a blur of blood, sweat, and adrenaline. Jack's weapon connected with the Exitherian leader's armor, causing an explosion of sparks and energy. But the leader wasn't finished yet. It countered with a devastating blow, sending Jack crashing to the ground once more. As Jack struggled to rise, his vision fading in and out, he knew he had to end this. The Vanguard had given them a second chance, but it was running out of time. He had to finish this now, before the ship's energy reserves were completely depleted. With the last of his strength, Jack made one final desperate move. He activated the Vanguard's auxiliary systems, using its energy to power his final attack. The alien leader, caught off guard by the sudden surge of power, faltered for just a moment. That was all Jack needed. He launched himself at the alien leader, striking with everything he had left. The force of the impact was enough to send the Exitherian leader tumbling to the ground. Jack stood over the fallen alien, his breath coming in ragged gasps, his body shaking from exhaustion and pain. But he didn't stop. He raised his weapon, aiming directly at the Exitherian's chest, and fired. The shot rang out, the energy blast striking the leader squarely. The alien's body convulsed in the final moments of life before it went still, its once proud form now lifeless on the cold metal floor. The silence that followed was deafening. Jack stood there, his heart pounding in his chest. The fight was over. The threat had been eliminated. The Exitherian Empire had been defeated. Humanity had won. But the victory was bittersweet. Jack had lost so much along the way. He had avenged his dog, his friend, and the countless others who had suffered at the hands of the Exitherians. But the cost had been great. As Jack stood there, breathing heavily, he knew that the war was over. Humanity had proven itself stronger than the stars, stronger than any alien empire that dared to challenge it. But Jack also knew that the scars of war would remain with him forever. The memories of his fallen comrades, the sacrifices they had made, would never fade. The Vanguard had done its job. Humanity had triumphed, but the war had taken everything. And as Jack looked out into the vast expanse of space, he knew that the universe would never be the same again. The fight had been won, but at what cost? The final battle had been fought. The war was over, and humanity stood victorious. The Vanguard, the powerful ship that had been their greatest weapon and symbol of hope, had delivered the final blow to the Exitherian fleet. The once mighty empire was now nothing more than a pile of rubble, its massive ships reduced to dust in the cold vacuum of space. Jack and his team had done the impossible. They had struck at the heart of the Exitherian Empire, and they had won. But the victory came at an unimaginable cost. The Vanguard had been destroyed in the process. Its systems had been pushed beyond their limits, and though it had fought valiantly to the end, it could no longer continue. Humanity had lost one of its greatest assets in the war. But what was the Vanguard in the grand scheme of things compared to what they had gained? Earth had defeated an entire alien empire. Jack's heart ached, knowing the price of that victory. His best friend Bonner, a brave soldier who had fought by his side since the beginning, had died in the battle. His death was a painful reminder of the sacrifices made in the name of survival. The Vanguard was lost, but the spirit of humanity could never be extinguished. Jack stood in the midst of the wreckage, his mind racing with thoughts of the past, the present, and what the future might hold. His body was battered and broken from the intense fight, but he had a fire in his heart that nothing could put out. The loss of his friends, the pain of losing Bonner, the destruction of everything they had fought to protect. It was all part of the price of survival. But Jack knew one thing for sure: they had won. Humanity had proved its strength, its resilience, and its determination to fight no matter the odds. The survivors of the battle, those who had managed to escape the destruction of the Vanguard, gathered together in the ruins of the Exitherian capital ship. They stood in silence for a moment, looking around at the devastation. The once proud alien fleet was gone, scattered across the stars. The remains of the vanguard drifted in the distance, a symbol of humanity's strength and sacrifice. But even as they mourned their losses, there was a sense of pride among the survivors. They had done what no one thought possible. They had destroyed the Titherian Empire. They had proven that humanity would not be intimidated by any force in the galaxy. As Jack looked around at the faces of his fellow soldiers, he could see the pain in their eyes. Each one of them had lost something precious in the war: family, friends, comrades. And yet they stood tall, their spirits unbroken. They had fought not just for Earth, but for each other. They had fought for the future, for the hope that they could make the galaxy a better place. And in the end, they had won. With the battle finally over, Jack stood alone for a moment, staring into the vastness of space. His mind wandered back to the beginning of the war, when humanity had been nothing more than a small, insignificant species on the edge of the galaxy. How far they had come since then. They had faced an enemy more powerful and technologically advanced than anything they could have imagined, and they had defeated it. They had fought not just with weapons, but with their hearts, their minds, and their will to survive. It wasn't just the vanguard that had won the war. It was the human spirit. As Earth began to rebuild, sending out messages of victory to the galaxy, Jack knew that their place in the universe had been forever changed. The Exetherians had underestimated humanity. They had thought that Earth was weak, that humans were nothing more than an easy target. But the vanguard had shown them otherwise. The battle may have been won, but the war for humanity's place in the galaxy was just beginning. The message Earth sent out to the stars was clear. Humanity would never be underestimated again. The Exetherians were not the first alien empire to challenge Earth, and they certainly wouldn't be the last. But now, the galaxy knew that Earth was a force to be reckoned with. The vanguard may have been lost, but humanity's spirit would never falter. No matter what challenges lay ahead, humanity would face them head-on, with the same courage and determination that had led them to victory over the Exetherians. Jack felt a deep sense of pride as he watched the message leave Earth, spreading out across the stars. It wasn't just a message to the galaxy. It was a message to every future enemy, every civilization that would ever doubt humanity's strength. Earth was no longer a backwater planet, hiding in the shadows of the galaxy. They had proven their worth, and they were ready for whatever the universe had in store. But even as the pride of victory washed over Jack, there was a sadness that lingered in his heart. He had lost so much. Bonner's death weighed heavily on him, and the destruction of the vanguard felt like a personal loss. The ship had been more than just a weapon. It had been a symbol of everything they had fought for. But as Jack stood there, watching the stars, he knew that the vanguard's legacy would live on. It was more than just a ship. It was the embodiment of humanity's will to survive, to fight, and to never back down. And that legacy would continue, no matter what. As the survivors gathered together to honor their fallen comrades, Jack couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude for the people who had stood by him through it all. They were his family now, the people who had fought alongside him, the people who had shared in his pain and his triumph. The war had taken so much from them, but it had also brought them closer together. They were stronger for it, and they would continue to fight. For Earth, for the future, and for the memory of those they had lost. As Jack looked up at the stars one last time, he knew that their victory was only the beginning. Earth's place in the galaxy had been secured, but the journey was far from over. The universe was vast, and there were countless challenges ahead. But humanity had shown that it could overcome anything, no matter the odds. They had defeated the Exetherians, and they would continue to fight. The spirit of humanity was unstoppable, and nothing could ever break it. The vanguard had been lost, but the legacy of what it represented would live on forever. Humanity had proven that they were no longer the underdogs. They were a force to be reckoned with. And as Jack stared into the endless night of space, he knew that Earth's story had only just begun. The fight had been won, but there would be many more battles to come, and humanity was ready for them.